Housing. Economic facts and fallacies. Quote, the biggest economic fallacy about housing is that affordable housing requires government intervention. Close quote. Now, Tom, I have to remonstrate with you. No poor person would be able to live on the island of Manhattan or in the city of San Francisco.
Oh, that's beautiful.
If there weren't rent control or subsidized low-income housing that these cities forced builders to set aside when they built their high-rises for rich people. Isn't that manifestly true?
No, it's not even remotely true.
All right, explain. Explain.
Well, first history. There were more people, I believe, living in Manhattan prior to the rise of rent control and prior to the rise of government housing projects. My gosh, at one time, the Lower East Side of New York was the most tightly packed place in the world.
This gentleman is a history
New York and San Francisco have very long rent control laws.
This guy is literally a history book, man. He's a walking, talking, freaking history book. Do not try to pull anything over on Thomas Sowell, because he's going to tell you exactly what was going on in that time. And he's going to be able to paint the picture so that nobody missed the point. You're not going to miss the point when you walk away from the conversation. Period. The dude is a walking, talking history book, man. Sir, what?
New York and San Francisco have very long rent control laws, old ones and severe ones. And yet when you look at the cities with the highest rents in the country of any major cities, they are #1 New York and #2 San Francisco.
Wow.
So what's going on? Why does the political system produce a perverse outcome, which is then supported in the press? Try to mention a repeal of rent control, and the New York Times will go after you immediately.
Absolutely. What happens in rent control around the world, really, because it's been tried so many times, is that people, if the rent control is severe, the people either reduce the amount of housing they build, or they stop building housing altogether. Yeah. And so what happens, the political authorities are then confronted with a situation. Do you want to have a situation where there's no new housing built and the old housing is wearing out, usually faster under rent control, because the landlords don't have to keep it up as much.
Wow.
And so they step in and they'll have some kind of modification so that, well, let's say we're trying to protect.
Oh, so that's how slumlords are created. All right. Well, that's not how they're created. They're created simply because they're just inconsiderate, trifling human beings who have a little bit of power and decide not to use their powers for good. They decide to use for evil. Idiots.
So they step in and they'll have some kind of modification so that, well, let's say we're trying to protect the poor, so we won't regulate luxury housing. Of course, luxury housing and ordinary housing use much of the same labor, the same materials. And so therefore, all the materials that would otherwise have gone into making ordinary housing goes into building luxury housing.
Mm. Wow. Economic facts and fallacies once again. If we go back to the beginning of the 20th century, before government intervention became pervasive in housing markets, we find, and this is to me one of the most arresting assertions in the book.
I'm sorry, I was looking over here to see if I don't have that one. I have rednecks and black rednecks and white liberals, intellectuals. I have intellectuals in society. The vision of the anointed. Wow. I am blessed with books, bro. I am blessed.
In housing markets, we find, and this is to me one of the most arresting assertions in the book, we find people paying a smaller percentage of their expenditures for housing than at the end of the 20th century. In 1901, housing costs took 23% of the average American family's spending. By 2003, it took 33% of a far larger amount of spending.
Wow.
What's going on?
What's going on is that they're restricting the amount of housing that can be built. And obviously, if you restrict the supply while the demand is growing, the prices will go up through the roof.
Cui bono? Who benefits from this arrangement?
Politicians, most of all.
Always. And that's why it's extremely difficult for me to trust politicians, because they are in it for the game, for the love of the game. Yes, they're in it to do some good too. Yeah, they want to be able to do some good and come out on top and be super wealthy and rich at the end of the day. But they want to do some good along the way. You know what I mean? They want to do some nice things while they do some things that they know are just frankly effed up things. But you know what I mean? We got to take advantage of them in order to bless them. I don't know. Can we have it both ways? I don't even know if we can nowadays.
Cui bono? Who benefits from this arrangement?
Politicians, most of all.
How?
Because they get the reputation of being for the poor and the downtrodden, and that they're setting aside affordable housing units, usually in some token amounts. They are preventing the evil landlords from raising the rent by rent control, and they make, if they are able to keep the public paranoid that if they take off the rent control, you know, it'll be just sky high prices, and so they
keep the public paranoid. Oh my God, I like that he said that. Sheesh.
Rent control, you know, it'll be just sky high prices, and so they gain by that. Both the landlords and the tenants lose. They lose in different ways and to different extents. The tenants lose because they can't find a place to stay. The landlords lose because they don't make the profit they would have made otherwise. The builders lose because there's no demand for apartment buildings if nobody can make a profit on it.
All right. Economic facts and fallacies once again. Quote, where builders are allowed to construct homes and apartments without severe government restrictions, even growing populations and rising incomes do not cause housing prices to shoot up because the supply of newly constructed housing keeps up with the growing demand, as in Houston. Now, would you please contrast Houston with our own coastal California?
Oh my goodness. There couldn't be a greater
contrast. An easy one.
Yes, that's an easy one. Houston doesn't even have zoning laws. But whereas
Hold on 1 second. I gotta move this out the way. Average apartment rent cost in Houston is $1,171. Sheesh, that's a lot. What am I missing? That's a lot. I see why it's written in red. Whoa. All right. Okay, let me see what they're talking about.
Houston with our own coastal California.
Oh my goodness. There couldn't be a greater
contrast. An easy one.
Yes, that's an easy one. Houston doesn't even have zoning laws. But
Wow.
Whereas to build anything in coastal California is just an ordeal. I mean, you have to not only go, you have to go through all kinds of planning commissions. I've had the misfortune of sitting in on 2 planning commission meetings. I don't know what it did for my blood pressure watching these people. The discouragement is huge.
So it's super inexpensive to live in Houston. Okay. I haven't lived in an apartment for a long time. A really long time. My wife and I have been blessed enough to be able to be homeowners for the last, since we were 20 years old. Now we're 44. So yeah, 20 years old. So yeah, but wow, that's crazy. So their apartments are $1,100. Their houses, to purchase a house, is in a lower 200,000s, but they don't have the inconvenience of living in one of their houses, buying one of their houses, or being able to own one of their houses. Is very, very high as far as inconvenience with the zoning laws and whatnot. But then in LA, the price for an apartment is in the 3,000s, and to own a home there is like 800,000. Sheesh. Good Lord. Good Lord. That's a lot of money. Look at this right here, man. Y'all see this right here. Look at this. This is crazy. This is a lot of money. This is a lot of money. 800,000. My gosh. Okay. That's all right.
I've had the misfortune of sitting in on 2 planning commission meetings. I don't know what it did for my blood pressure watching these people. The discouragement is huge. So someone estimated, for example, a real estate company, that a house that would cost $155,000 in Houston would cost $1 million in San Francisco.
Right.
The same house.
Housing.
Wow. Wow. Sheesh. Okay. Hey, when class begins, and Thomas Sowell is the professor for me. So yeah, wow, I need to check out some more stuff from him, because and I need to stop BSing and actually have a notepad nearby while I'm reacting to his stuff, because he drops jewels. Him and this gentleman right here is well read on all of Thomas Sowell's material, and they just have intimate conversations about and you know, he's not trying to sway him left or right. He just asks some questions about it, and then he gives some examples that might be for or against, and Thomas Sowell would just clear it up. And Thomas Sowell automatically knows when he's being when he's using sarcasm. Okay. Anyway, y'all let me know what y'all think about this in the comments below. If you have yet to hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so on your way out the door. Once again, guys, I'm Van, and now we are all the LFR family, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video, hopefully inside of the Patreon as well. You all have been amazing. Love y'all. Check out the website.